Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something we've all run up against, the dogmatic mind. Using the research as our guide, let's try to figure out what's really going on when a mind seems completely and utterly closed off.
Okay, let's start with a feeling that I'm pretty sure we all know. You know that moment, right? That feeling of just complete frustration when you're laying out all the facts, all the logic, and it feels like the other person's mind is just completely sealed shut.
Well, that experience actually has a name. Dogmatism. And it's not just about being stubborn. Not at all. So let's use the research to explore what it really means to have a closed mind, and, more importantly, why it even matters.
So, the researcher Milton Rokeach framed this in a really fascinating way. He argued that dogmatism isn't about what you believe. It doesn't matter if it's left-wing, right-wing, religious, or secular. No, it's all about how you hold those beliefs. It's a personality style, a way of thinking that just resists new information. And this brings up a really crucial distinction we need to make. Dogmatism is that inflexible personality trait, right? That closed style of thinking. Dogma, on the other hand, well, that's just a core belief of a system, like a religious or political principle. The point is, you can hold a dogma without being dogmatic. They are not the same thing.
So, if dogmatism is a personality trait, what does it actually look like in a person? Let's break down some of the key characteristics.
The source material paints a pretty clear picture here. A dogmatic mind just can't handle uncertainty. It immediately rejects any information that conflicts with what it already believes. This leads to a super rigid, uncompromising style, where new information isn't seen as an opportunity to learn, but as a direct threat to the ego that has to be fought off. And the source material uses a really powerful metaphor to describe where this can all lead. It says it can become a kind of belief autism, where the person is totally isolated inside their own mental framework, literally unable to connect with or process different viewpoints. Their world just becomes an echo chamber of one.
But here's where things get bigger, because this isn't just about individuals. The research is clear that entire systems of thought can become dogmatic too.
And this might be a little surprising, but the source points out that even science, the field we think of as the gold standard for being open and objective, even science isn't immune to this.
The philosopher of science, Thomas Kuhn, actually had a name for this, a paradigm. A paradigm is basically the dominant set of assumptions in a scientific field that kind of dictates what questions you're allowed to ask and what answers are considered possible. And yeah, paradigms are useful, but they can become so powerful that they actively resist and even suppress new, revolutionary ideas that just don't fit the established mold. Okay, this brings us to a really complex and, let's be honest, an often debated topic, the link between religion and a dogmatic style of thinking.
The paper we're looking at notes that some of the early research, including studies from Rokeach himself, did find a positive connection. In his studies, religious groups tended to score higher on the dogmatism scales than non-believers did. But, and this is a really big but, it is not that simple. The source also highlights completely contrasting research. Some studies found that people with strong negative attitudes toward religion could actually be even more rigid and dogmatic in their thinking than the religious individuals they were being compared to. So what's the takeaway here? The crucial point is this: dogmatism isn't owned by any single group. It's about the structure of how you believe, not what you believe. You can find it anywhere, in politics, on the left and the right, in science, and among both the religious and the non-religious. Now, to see how a belief system can grapple with this tension, the source gives us a fascinating case study, this constant pull between a fixed tradition and the need for new interpretation.
The paper describes a situation it actually calls cultural autism. This happens when a whole community makes its history and its past interpretations so sacred that it can no longer engage with new problems or the modern world. It becomes closed off, just like an individual dogmatic mind.
And this quote just captures it perfectly. That defense of, well, this is how it's always been done, or this is what our ancestors believed. It becomes a wall that stops any kind of progress. The source points out that this is an attitude the Quran itself criticizes, yet it can still pop back up within the culture.
But the source also points to a really powerful tool within this tradition to fight back against this problem, the concept of ijtihad. This is the principle of independent reasoning, of using your intellect to find fresh solutions to new challenges.
And that right there brings us to the core takeaway from this whole analysis, whether we're talking about individual people, entire cultures, or even scientific fields.
The antidote to a closed mind is an unlocked door. It's the ability to reevaluate, to reinterpret,
and to apply critical thinking to even our most deeply held beliefs. That's what keeps a mind and a culture alive, dynamic, and actually engaged with the real world.
So, we'll leave you with this final question to think about. The first step toward having an open mind is just noticing which doors you've kept locked. So what's one belief you've never truly allowed yourself to question? Thanks for joining us.